Hello, my name is Michael Fortune from Folklore.ie, and I'm here just to tell you a few little stories about St. Patrick's Day, little stories that you mightn't have heard before. I'm out in the garden here in County Wexford, and one of the jobs that I'm doing before the sun goes down on St. Patrick's Day is I'm planting some little seed potatoes. I'm holding the seed potatoes in my hand. These are my own that we had from last year, some seed that are left over, and you see little eyes sticking up. And the custom was all around the country, from Wexford to Antrim, from Galway to Offaly, was the tradition that you'd always get your spuds in on or before St. Patrick's Day. That was the tradition. That was the kind of a cut-off date to get the early spuds in. And people still follow that rule up and down the country to this day. I'm sure some of your grandparents and even some of your parents might still do that. And people traditionally then would dig them out on the 29th of June. That was St. Peter and Paul's Day. And if you went further up into the north, people would up into North Leinster and South Ulster, people would dig them out on the 12th of July. So there was even a great saying I've heard up around Ulster. It says, "Plant with Paddy and dig with Billy." That was the saying. Two kind of pivotal dates in different people's calendars, and in the year. So that's what I'm doing, and I'll do that now when I'm finished up with G. But there are little things around St. Patrick that you mightn't have heard of before. One of the stories is I grew up with, my surname is Fortune, and there's a connection to Patrick that I only kind of figured out later in life. One was that one of St. Patrick's bell makers was a man called Saint Fortune, and that's where we were told our surname came from. And the story goes that St. Patrick, when he was coming back into Ireland, him with Lomond and a pile of them, these are the stories now, that they came from Wales, and they landed up near North Wexford in a place called Castletown. And a fella called Éanna Kinsella didn't like the look of Patrick and didn't like the look of the crew that he had with him, and they threw stones at him. And even to this day, when you talk to some of the older people up there, they'll always go, oh yeah, we threw stones at Patrick and we ran him. And the story goes that he sailed all the way up along the east coast, up past Wicklow into Dublin, or past Dublin, and he settled and he came down the mouth of the River Boyne. And they camped up near Trim. But one of the young fellas that he converted was a fella called Fortune. He was I think he was a son of a Breton or a native Welsh mother and an Irish father. That's the story anyway. Another lovely story which you'll hear of, poor old St. Patrick wasn't always welcome, and this is another story I've come across up and down the country as well. I recorded people up in Mayo telling me this, in a little village called Kilmaine, or a big village called Kilmaine. And they said to me that, I remember a woman told me, she said, oh yeah, St. Patrick came through Kilmaine, she says. And I said, all right, yeah. I said, yeah. He came through with his goat. Now, he must be walking around with a goat with him. That's the story anyway. And he asked for a drink of water, and the locals refused him the drink of water. And then they killed his poor old goat, and he put a curse in the place, and he said, there'll never be a butcher's in Kilmaine. And the woman who told me this story in 2008, she says, there was never a butcher's in Kilmaine since that day. So she's going back to 1600 years again and tracing back to the curse that Patrick put in the place, like the poor old craters here in Wexford as well. So that story is found up and down the country again about refusing water. That's part of our folklore as well, this idea of refusing. You'd never refuse anyone a drink of water. I remember one thing actually around St. Patrick's Day when I was small. It was always, we always used to wear little badges. You'd always wear shamrock like you probably do yourselves. In some cases you'd always go out and try to find a bit of shamrock, or your father or your grandmother or someone would actually go and try to find a bit of shamrock. That was always a bit of a challenge to go find a piece of shamrock. And even if you couldn't, you'd stick something green in your jumper. But one of the things that I do remember always struck me on that day was, if you managed to take a Lenten fast, if you'd given up chocolate or sweets or crisps for Lent, you were allowed to break that fast on St. Patrick's Day. Now that was very convenient for a child. You could actually have a few sweets and have a few crisps on that day, and sure, why wouldn't you? And I'm sure if any has ever followed that rule to this day, sure, isn't it a good day to break it, or a good chance to break it? Speaking of food, I'm going to have to get back now and plant these spuds, because they won't be ready, and I'll have nothing to eat come the 29th of June. I'll have no early Wexford spuds. So listen, thanks a million for watching and listening to me, and have a lovely St. Patrick's Day, and stay safe, and I'll be talking to you again. Take care. Agus slán.